The rain came down hard that Tuesday morning, turning the city streets into a maze of puddles and rushing water. Maya adjusted her bag on her shoulder for the 100th time, trying to keep her portfolio dry under her small umbrella. Her heart was racing not just from walking fast, but from the nervous energy that had been building since she woke up at 5 in the morning. Today was the day. The interview she had been preparing for weeks. HOA Industries. The name alone made her stomach flip. It was one of those companies everyone knew about, the kind of place where people built real careers, not just jobs. And somehow, after dozens of rejection emails and automated responses, they had called her. They wanted to meet her. They wanted to see if she could be their new marketing coordinator. Maya checked her phone again. 14 minutes. The building was just 3 blocks away now. She could see the top of it from where she stood, all glass and steel reaching up into the gray sky. She would make it. She had to make it. Her shoes splashed through a puddle as she picked up her pace. The suit she wore was the nicest thing she owned, bought 2 years ago when she still had a steady paycheck and hope felt easier to hold on to. She had ironed it 3 times last night, making sure every crease was perfect. First impressions mattered. Everyone said so. And this might be her last chance to make one that counted. The past 6 months had been brutal. After the company she worked for went under, Maya had sent out what felt like 1,000 resumes. She had rewritten her cover letter so many times she could recite it in her sleep. Most applications disappeared into silence. Some sent back those polite rejection emails that all said the same thing in different words. A few had called her in for interviews, only to tell her they were going with someone who had more experience or better connections, or who just somehow fit better with their team. Her savings account was almost empty now. Last week she had to choose between buying groceries and paying for the internet she needed to keep job hunting. She chose the internet and made rice and beans stretch further than she thought possible. Her little apartment, which had once felt cozy and full of possibility, now felt like a reminder of everything that was slipping away. But today could change all of that. Today could be the turning point. Maya turned the corner onto 5th Street, and that's when she saw the crowd. A group of maybe 15 or 20 people had formed a semicircle on the sidewalk ahead. Some were holding their phones up, recording something. Others just stood there watching. The rain kept falling, but no one seemed to care about getting wet. She slowed down, trying to see what they were looking at. Her first instinct was to walk around them, to stay focused on where she needed to be. But something made her stop. Through the gaps between people, she could see someone on the ground. An older man, probably in his 60s, lying on the wet pavement. His gray suit was soaked through, and papers from his briefcase were scattered everywhere, turning to mush in the rain. One of his hands was pressed against his chest, and even from where she stood, Maya could see he was struggling to breathe. No one was helping him. They were just standing there, watching, recording. Someone laughed nervously. Another person said something about calling for help, but didn't move to do it. A young guy in a hoodie zoomed in with his phone camera, probably already thinking about what caption would get the most likes. Maya felt something cold settle in her stomach, and it wasn't just the rain that had soaked through her jacket. She looked at her phone again. 11 minutes now. The interview was 11 minutes away, and she still had 3 blocks to go. The man on the ground tried to sit up and couldn't. He slumped back down, his face twisted in pain or fear or both. His lips were moving like he was trying to say something, but no sound was coming out. Maya's mind raced. She needed this interview. She needed it more than she had needed anything in a long time. Missing it wasn't an option. They wouldn't reschedule. Companies like HOA Industries didn't wait for people who couldn't show up on time. There were probably 50 other candidates ready to take her spot. But the man was right there, right in front of her, and nobody was doing anything. Her mother's voice echoed in her head, something she used to say when Maya was little. "Baby, we might not have much, but we have our hearts. And when someone needs help, you help." That's all there is to it. Maya closed her eyes for just a second, feeling the rain on her face. Then she pushed through the crowd. "Excuse me," she said, her voice louder than she expected. "Move, please." People turned to look at her like she was interrupting something. A woman with bright pink nails actually looked annoyed, like Maya was blocking her shot. But Maya didn't stop. She dropped to her knees beside the man, not caring that the water on the pavement soaked through her dress pants immediately. "Sir," she said, leaning close to his face. "Sir, can you hear me?" His eyes focused on her, wide and frightened. He nodded slightly. Okay, that's good. You're going to be okay. Maya looked up at the crowd, her voice sharp now. Someone call an ambulance. Right now. A few people shifted uncomfortably, but finally, a woman near the back pulled out her phone and started dialing. Maya turned back to the man. His breathing was shallow and quick, and his skin had a grayish tint that made her heart clench with worry. She had taken a first aid course years ago for a summer job, and she tried desperately to remember what they had taught her. Can you tell me where it hurts? She asked. He pressed his hand harder against his chest. Heart, he managed to whisper. My heart. Maya's own heart started pounding faster. A heart attack. This man was having a heart attack right here on the sidewalk, and minutes ago, all these people had just been standing around watching like it was entertainment. The ambulance is coming, she told him, trying to keep her voice calm even though her hands were shaking. Just stay with me, okay? Keep your eyes open. What's your name? Richard, he breathed out. Richard Bennett. Okay, Richard. I'm Maya, you're doing great. Just keep breathing for me. She grabbed his hand and he squeezed it hard like she was the only solid thing in a world that was spinning out of control. His briefcase was open beside them, and she could see important-looking documents getting ruined in the rain. There was a leather planner, some files with corporate logos, a pair of expensive-looking reading glasses with one lens cracked. Maya pulled off her jacket and wadded it up, gently placing it under his head so he wasn't lying flat on the concrete. It was already soaked anyway, and at least this way he had something soft beneath him. Is he going to die? Someone in the crowd asked, their tone almost curious rather than concerned. No, Maya said firmly, not looking up. She wasn't sure if she was answering them or trying to convince herself. He's going to be fine. Richard's grip on her hand tightened. His lips were trembling now, and she could see tears mixing with the rain on his face. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for stopping. The words hit Maya harder than she expected. She thought about how she had almost kept walking, how close she had come to being like everyone else, to deciding that her problems were more important than his pain. She checked her phone one more time. 5 minutes until her interview. There was no way now. Even if she left right this second, even if she ran, she would be late. And showing up late and soaking wet with scraped knees and muddy clothes would be worse than not showing up at all. The opportunity she had worked so hard for, the chance she had been praying for, was slipping away, and there was nothing she could do about it. But looking down at Richard, at this frightened man who just needed someone to see him as a person instead of a spectacle, Maya knew she had made the only choice she could live with. You're not alone, she told him quietly. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. In the distance, she could finally hear sirens. The ambulance was coming. Around them, the crowd was starting to thin out, people losing interest now that the initial drama was over. Some were already walking away, probably uploading their videos, moving on to whatever else their day held. Maya stayed on the wet ground, holding the hand of a stranger, watching the minutes tick by on her phone until they didn't matter anymore. She thought about the interview she would miss, the job she would never get, the empty promises of her bank account. She thought about how hard she would have to search now, how many more rejection emails would fill her inbox, how much longer she would have to make every dollar stretch. But mostly, she thought about how Richard was still breathing, still holding her hand, still here, and somehow that felt like it had to mean something. The ambulance pulled up, its red and blue lights cutting through the gray morning. Paramedics jumped out with their equipment, moving with practiced efficiency. One of them, a woman with kind eyes, knelt down beside Maya. We've got him now, she said gently. You did good. Maya slowly let go of Richard's hand and stood up, her legs stiff and aching. Her entire suit was ruined, covered in street grime and water. Her carefully styled hair hung in wet strings around her face. Her portfolio, which she had tried so hard to protect, had fallen open, and some of her best work was now decorated with muddy footprints. As the paramedics worked to stabilize Richard and load him onto a stretcher, he reached out toward her. Wait, he said, his voice stronger now. Please, I need to know your name. Your full name. It's Maya, she said. Maya Patel. He nodded like he was committing it to memory. Maya Patel, I won't forget. Then they were lifting him into the ambulance, and Maya stood alone on the sidewalk watching the doors close and the vehicle pull away. Sirens wailing as it disappeared into traffic. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. The crowd was completely gone now, leaving behind only wet footprints and a few pieces of scattered trash. Maya looked down at her phone one last time. The interview had started 10 minutes ago. She could call them, try to explain, but she already knew how that conversation would go. They would be polite. They would tell her they understood, and they would never call her back. She had given up everything for a man she didn't know, for someone who would probably forget about her before the day was over. And as she started the long walk home, water squelching in her shoes with every step, Maya couldn't decide if she had just made the best decision of her life or the worst one. All she knew for certain was that she had done what felt right. And somewhere in the mess of this terrible, beautiful morning, that would have to be enough. Maya sat on her apartment floor that afternoon, still wearing her ruined suit. She hadn't bothered to change. What was the point? She had been sitting there for hours, staring at the wall, trying to process what had happened. Her phone buzzed for the 5th time. Another message from her best friend, asking how the interview went. Maya couldn't bring herself to respond. How do you explain that you threw away your last chance because you couldn't walk past someone who needed help? People would say she did the right thing, but right things didn't pay rent. Right things didn't put food on the table. She finally pulled herself up and walked to her tiny kitchen. The refrigerator hummed loudly, the way it always did, like it was struggling to keep working. Inside there wasn't much, some eggs, a carton of milk that would expire tomorrow, half a loaf of bread. She had been planning to celebrate after the interview, maybe buy herself a real meal for once. That plan felt like it belonged to a different person now. Maya made herself tea with a bag she had already used twice. She couldn't afford to waste anything. As she waited for the water to boil, she looked around her apartment. It was small, just a studio really, but it had been hers. When she first moved in 2 years ago, she had felt so proud. She had painted the walls herself, a soft blue that reminded her of the sky. She had found furniture at thrift stores and garage sales, mixing and matching until everything felt just right. There were plants on the windowsill that she talked to every morning, photos of her family taped to the wall, books stacked in corners because she didn't have a proper bookshelf. But lately, the apartment felt different. Smaller, like the walls were closing in. The eviction notice that had arrived last week sat on her counter, a constant reminder that this place she had worked so hard to make into a home might not be hers much longer. Her phone rang, making her jump. Unknown number. Her heart did a little leap. Maybe it was Monroe Industries. Maybe they were calling to give her another chance, to ask why she hadn't shown up. She grabbed the phone. Hello? Is this Maya Patel? A woman's voice, professional and crisp. Yes, this is Maya. This is Linda from Monroe Industries. We had you scheduled for an interview this morning at 9 o'clock. Maya's throat tightened. I know, I'm so sorry. There was an emergency, someone was hurt and I had to help. And I couldn't just leave them there on the street. And by the time the ambulance came, it was too late to make it to the interview. And I know I should have called, but everything happened so fast and… Miss Patel. Linda interrupted, her voice cool. We understand that emergencies happen. However, we had several other candidates scheduled today, and unfortunately we won't be able to reschedule your interview. We'll be moving forward with other applicants. Please, Maya heard herself say, and she hated how desperate she sounded. Please just give me another chance. I can come right now. I can be there in 30 minutes. I've been preparing for weeks. I really need this job. There was a pause on the other end. When Linda spoke again, her voice had softened just slightly. I'm sorry, Miss Patel, I really am. But the decision has been made. I wish you the best of luck in your job search. The line went dead. Maya stood there holding her phone, feeling like someone had just punched her in the stomach. She wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. She was too tired, too worn out, too empty. She had known this would happen. From the moment she knelt down beside Richard on that wet sidewalk, she had known. But hearing it said out loud made it real in a way that hurt more than she expected. She spent the rest of the day applying to more jobs. Any jobs. Positions she was overqualified for. Positions she had no experience in. Positions that paid barely above minimum wage. She sent out application after application, each one feeling more hopeless than the last. Her eyes burned from staring at the computer screen. Her back ached from sitting in the same position for hours. But she kept going because what else was there to do? By evening, she had applied to 23 different jobs. She knew most of them would go nowhere. But maybe, just maybe, one would respond. One would give her a chance. The next morning, Maya woke up to her alarm groaning. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she kept seeing Richard's face, kept feeling his hand gripping hers. She wondered if he was okay, if he had made it through the night. Part of her wanted to call the hospital and ask, but she didn't even know which hospital they had taken him to. She got dressed in jeans and a sweater, not bothering with anything nice. Where did she have to go anyway? She made herself coffee and sat down at her computer to check her email, bracing herself for the usual rejections or, more likely, nothing at all. But there was something, an email that had come in at 6:30 that morning. The subject line read, "Urgent, please contact immediately." Maya's heart started racing. Scam emails usually had subject lines like that, but when she opened it, she saw it was from an executive assistant at Bennett Holdings Corporation. The name sounded familiar, but she couldn't place it. The email was short and direct. "Miss Patel, Mr. Bennett would like to speak with you at your earliest convenience regarding the incident yesterday morning. Please call the number below as soon as possible." Maya read it 3 times, trying to understand. Mr. Bennett. Richard Bennett. That was the name of the man she had helped. But why would he want to talk to her? And what was Bennett Holdings Corporation? She pulled up a new browser tab and searched for the company. What she found made her hands start shaking. Bennett Holdings Corporation was huge, not just successful, but massive. They owned dozens of companies across different industries. Tech firms, real estate, manufacturing, the kind of corporation that had buildings in every major city and annual revenue that made her head spin just reading the numbers. And Richard Bennett wasn't just some employee. He was the founder and CEO. The articles she found showed photos of him at business conferences, accepting awards, shaking hands with politicians and celebrities. In the pictures, he looked powerful and confident, nothing like the frightened man lying on the sidewalk in the rain. Maya sat back, her mind racing. A CEO? She had helped a billionaire CEO and didn't even know it, and now he wanted to talk to her. She picked up her phone with trembling fingers and dialed the number from the email. It rang twice before someone answered. "Mr. Bennett's office, this is Helen speaking." "Hi. This is Maya Patel. I got an email this morning saying Mr. Bennett wanted to speak with me." "Yes, Miss Patel. Thank you for calling so promptly. Mr. Bennett is very eager to speak with you. Are you available to come to our offices today?" Maya looked around her messy apartment at her coffee-stained sweater and unwashed hair. "Today, like right now?" "If possible. Mr. Bennett has cleared his schedule for you. I can send a car to pick you up within the hour." A car. They were sending a car for her. Maya's mind was spinning. "Okay, yes, that would be fine. Wonderful. What's your address?" After Maya gave her information and hung up, she just sat there for a moment, trying to process what was happening. Then she jumped up and ran to her closet. She needed to find something to wear, something that didn't look like she had given up on life. She pulled out clothes, discarding them one by one. Too casual, too wrinkled, too worn out. Finally, she settled on a simple black dress and a cardigan that didn't have any visible stains. She took the fastest shower of her life, dried her hair, and tried to make herself look presentable. In the mirror, she still looked tired, still looked like someone who had been struggling for too long. But it was the best she could do. Exactly 1 hour after the phone call, there was a knock on her door. Maya grabbed her bag and opened it to find a man in a dark suit standing there. "Miss Patel, I'm here to take you to Bennett Holdings." The car was nicer than any vehicle Maya had ever been in. Leather seats, bottles of water, and a small refrigerator. The driver didn't try to make conversation, which she was grateful for. She needed the time to think, to prepare, to figure out what she was going to say. What did Richard Bennett want? Was he going to thank her and give her some money as a reward? The thought made her uncomfortable. She hadn't helped him for money. She had helped him because it was the right thing to do, because he was a human being who needed help. If he offered her money, should she take it? She needed it desperately. But would taking it make what she did feel cheap somehow? The car pulled up to a building that looked like something out of a magazine. All glass and modern architecture, with the Bennett Holdings logo displayed prominently above the entrance. People in expensive suits walked in and out, everyone moving with purpose, everyone looking like they belonged in this world of power and money. Maya felt completely out of place. The driver opened her door and gestured toward the entrance. Helen will meet you in the lobby. Maya stepped out, her legs feeling weak. She walked through the revolving doors into a lobby that was bigger than her entire apartment building. Marble floors. Art on the walls that probably cost more than she made in a year. A massive chandelier hanging from the ceiling that sparkled like diamonds. Miss Patel, a woman approached her, smiling warmly. She was probably in her 50s with kind eyes and perfectly styled gray hair. I'm Helen. Thank you so much for coming. Mr. Bennett is waiting for you. Helen led her to a private elevator that required a key card to access. As they rode up in silence, Maya caught her reflection in the mirrored walls. She looked small and scared, like a child playing dress-up in the adult world. The elevator opened directly into an office suite that took up the entire top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city that made Maya's breath catch. She could see for miles in every direction. The buildings and streets spread out below like a toy model. And there, standing by the windows with his back to her, was Richard Bennett. He turned when he heard them enter, and Maya was struck by how different he looked from yesterday. He was wearing an expensive suit, perfectly tailored. His hair was neatly styled. He stood straight and confident, but his eyes were the same, and when he saw her, they filled with an emotion she couldn't quite name. "Maya," he said, and his voice was stronger than it had been on the sidewalk, but just as genuine. "Thank you for coming. Helen, could you give us some privacy, please?" Helen nodded and disappeared, closing the door behind her. Maya stood there awkwardly, not sure what to do with her hands, not sure where to look. Richard walked toward her, and for a moment neither of them said anything. Then he held out his hand, not for a handshake, but palm up, the way someone reaches for a friend. "You saved my life yesterday," he said quietly. "The doctors told me that if I had been alone much longer, if no one had called for help, I wouldn't have made it. You gave up something important for me, didn't you?" Maya swallowed hard. "How did you know?" I asked around. "Made some calls. Found out you had an interview at Monroe Industries at 9 o'clock that morning. Found out they refused to reschedule." He paused. "I also found out Monroe Industries is one of my subsidiary companies, which means the person who refused to reschedule was working for me, refusing to help the woman who saved my life." Maya's eyes widened. "I didn't know. I had no idea you were connected to them." "I know you didn't. That's what makes it matter even more." Richard gestured to a chair. "Please sit. We have a lot to talk about." Maya sat down, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Richard took the chair across from her, leaning forward with his hands clasped together. "I've spent my whole life building this company," he said, "making deals, hiring the best people, doing whatever it took to succeed. And yesterday I had a heart attack on a busy street, and do you know what happened? People stood there and filmed me. They watched me dying and thought about their social media posts. Not one person stopped to help until you came along." His voice cracked slightly, and Maya realized he was fighting back tears. "You had everything to lose and nothing to gain, and you still stopped. You still helped. You held my hand and told me I wasn't alone. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How precious that is?" Maya didn't know what to say. Her own eyes were filling with tears now. Richard reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. But when he handed it to her, she saw it was blank except for a phone number written in pen. "This is my private number," he said. "The one only my family has. I want you to have it. Because, Maya, I want to offer you something." Maya looked up at him, confused. "A job," Richard said. "Here, working directly with me." Maya stared at Richard, sure she had heard him wrong. A job, working directly with him? Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Her brain felt like it had short-circuited, unable to process what was happening. "I know this is sudden," Richard said, a small smile crossing his face. "And I know it probably sounds crazy, but I've been thinking about this since they wheeled me into that ambulance. I want you on my team, Maya. Not because I owe you, though I do, but because in the 30 seconds it took you to make your decision yesterday, you showed me something I rarely see anymore. Character. Real, honest character." Maya found her voice, though it came out shaky. "Mr. Bennett, I appreciate this, I really do, but I don't understand. You don't know anything about me. You don't know if I'm qualified, if I'm good at my job, if I can even do whatever it is you're asking me to do." "You're right," Richard said, leaning back in his chair. "I don't know those things. Not yet, so tell me about yourself. What were you interviewing for at Monroe Industries?" "Marketing coordinator," Maya said quietly. I have a degree in communications and marketing. I worked at a digital marketing firm for 3 years before they went under 6 months ago. Since then, I've been trying to find something, anything, but it's been hard, really hard. Richard nodded, listening intently. What did you do at your previous job? Maya felt herself relaxing slightly as she talked about something familiar. I managed social media campaigns for small to medium-sized businesses, helped them build their brand presence online, created content strategies, analyzed engagement metrics, worked with clients to understand their goals and figure out how to reach their target audiences. I was good at it too. My campaigns consistently outperformed our benchmarks. Why do you think that was? Richard asked. Why were you good at it? Maya thought about it for a moment. Because I cared. Not just about the numbers, but about the people behind them. Every business I worked with had a story, had real people who had put their dreams and savings into making something work. I wanted to help them succeed because I knew what it felt like to struggle, to hope, to need that one break that could change everything. Richard was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. Then he stood up and walked back to the windows, looking out at the city below. 5 years ago, he said, his voice distant. I almost lost everything. Not money, I had plenty of that. But my son got sick. Very sick. Cancer. He was only 12 years old, and the doctors gave him a 30% chance of survival. Maya felt her heart clench. She hadn't expected this. I spent every day at that hospital, Richard continued. I held his hand through every treatment, every surgery, every moment when he was too weak to even open his eyes. And you know what I learned? That all the money in the world, all the power and success in buildings with my name on them, none of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was being there. Being present. Being human. He turned back to face her, and Maya could see the pain in his eyes, old but still raw. My son survived. He's 17 now, healthy and strong and getting ready for college. And after that experience, I promised myself I would never forget what really matters. But yesterday, lying on that sidewalk, I realized I had forgotten. I had built this empire, but somewhere along the way I had stopped seeing people as people. They were employees, assets, resources to be managed. And then you came along and reminded me what I had lost. Maya felt tears prickling at her eyes. Mr. Bennett, I'm so glad your son is okay. Call me Richard, please. He walked back and sat down across from her again. Maya, I don't just want to give you a job. I want to create a new position, something that doesn't exist in my company yet. I want you to be my Director of Community Relations and Human Impact. Maya blinked. I don't even know what that means. Richard smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. Neither do I exactly. That's why I need you to help me figure it out. Here's what I'm thinking. Bennett Holdings has 42 subsidiary companies, thousands of employees, millions of customers. And somewhere in building all of this, we lost touch with the human side of business. We forgot that behind every number on a spreadsheet is a person with a life, with struggles, with dreams. He leaned forward, his voice growing more passionate. I want you to help me change that. I want you to find the stories we're missing. The employees who are struggling but too afraid to ask for help. The communities we operate in that we could be supporting better. The customers who need more than just a product. They need to feel seen and valued. I want you to be my eyes and ears for the things that matter beyond profit margins. Maya's head was spinning. This was nothing like the marketing coordinator position she had applied for. This was bigger, more important, and frankly terrifying. Richard, I don't know if I'm qualified for something like that. That sounds like a senior executive position, and I've only been working for 3 years. The best person for this job isn't someone who's been in corporate leadership for decades, Richard said firmly. It's someone who understands what it's like to struggle. Someone who knows what it feels like to choose between groceries and internet. Someone who would stop to help a stranger even when it cost them everything. He picked up a folder from his desk and handed it to her. This is a contract. Starting salary is $120,000 a year, plus benefits including full health coverage, retirement matching, and 4 weeks paid vacation. You'll have an office on this floor, an assistant, and a budget to use as you see fit for community initiatives. Maya opened the folder with shaking hands. The numbers on the page swam in front of her eyes. $120,000. She currently had $342 in her bank account. This salary was more than she had ever dreamed of making. It was enough to pay her rent, buy groceries without counting every penny, maybe even save some money for the future she had stopped believing in. I can't just accept this, she whispered. It's too much. You don't even know if I can do this job. Then prove it to me, Richard said simply. Take the job. Try it for 6 months. If at the end of that time either of us feels it's not working, we shake hands and part ways. But Maya, I have a feeling about you. The same feeling I had when I started this company 30 years ago with nothing but an idea and determination. Some things you just know. Maya looked down at the contract again. There was a signing bonus, $25,000 just for accepting the position. That money alone would solve every immediate problem she had. The eviction notice, the empty refrigerator, the constant anxiety that had been her companion for months. But something held her back. Why are you really doing this? She asked, looking up at Richard. Is this guilt? Do you feel like you owe me because I helped you? Richard met her eyes steadily. Yes, I feel gratitude. Yes, I want to repay your kindness. But that's not why I'm offering you this job. I'm offering it because yesterday, in the worst moment of my life, I saw the kind of person you are. And that's exactly the kind of person I need helping me run this company. Someone who doesn't just think about the bottom line. Someone who remembers that businesses are made up of people, and people matter. Maya felt something shift inside her. For months, she had been applying to jobs, trying to convince companies to take a chance on her, trying to prove she was worthy of being hired. And here was someone offering her not just a job, but an opportunity to do something meaningful, something that could actually make a difference. What would I do first? She asked quietly. If I took this job, where would I even start? Richard's face lit up. That's entirely up to you. That's the beauty of creating a new position. You define it. But if you want my suggestion, start by listening. Visit our companies. Talk to employees at every level. Talk to the customers. Talk to people in the communities where we operate. Find out what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong, and then come to me with ideas for how we can do better. Maya thought about her apartment, about the eviction notice, about the 23 job applications she had sent out yesterday. She thought about her mother's words, when someone needs help, you help. Maybe this was the universe's way of helping her back. But another thought nagged at her. What would people think? That she only got this job because she helped the CEO? That she didn't earn it, didn't deserve it? People are going to talk, she said. Employees, other companies. They're going to say I only got hired because of what happened yesterday. Let them talk, Richard said. People will always find something to say. What matters is what you do with the opportunity. Show them through your work that you deserve to be here. Maya took a deep breath. Her hand hovered over the contract, holding the pen Richard had handed her. This was insane. 24 hours ago, she was preparing for an entry-level interview, and now she was being offered a director-level position at one of the biggest corporations in the country. But sometimes life didn't make sense. Sometimes the universe threw you a lifeline when you least expected it, and sometimes you just had to be brave enough to grab it. She signed her name. Richard's smile was genuine and warm. He stood up and shook her hand firmly. Welcome to Bennett Holdings, Maya. I think you're going to change everything. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Helen came back in and took Maya on a tour of the building. She was introduced to so many people that their names immediately blurred together. Department heads, executive assistants, security personnel, IT staff. Everyone was polite, professional, and clearly curious about who she was and why Richard Bennett himself was personally introducing her around. They set her up. With an office 3 doors down from Richard's, it was bigger than her entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city. There was a desk made of dark wood that looked like it cost more than her car. A leather chair that was so comfortable she almost laughed when she sat in it. Bookshelves that were currently empty but wouldn't be for long. Her own private bathroom. A small seating area with a couch for meetings. This is mine? She asked Helen, still not quite believing it. All yours. Helen confirmed with a smile. It will set up your computer and phone tomorrow. HR will process your paperwork. And Richard wanted me to give you this. She handed Maya an envelope. Inside was a credit card with Maya's name on it and a note in Richard's handwriting. For anything you need to get started. Clothes, supplies, equipment. Don't hold back. You're representing Bennett Holdings now. Maya stared at the card, overwhelmed. Yesterday she couldn't afford groceries. Today she had a corporate credit card with presumably no limit. Is this real? She whispered. Helen put a gentle hand on her shoulder. It's real, dear. And if I may say so, Richard hasn't been this excited about anything in years. Whatever you did for him, it changed something. He's been different since yesterday. Lighter somehow, more like the man he used to be. After the tour, after the introductions, after signing what felt like a mountain of paperwork, Maya finally left the building. The same car that had picked her up was waiting to take her home. As they drove through the city, Maya looked out the window at the people on the sidewalks. How many of them were struggling like she had been? How many were one bad break away from losing everything? How many needed someone to stop and help them? She thought about what Richard had said, about finding the stories they were missing, about remembering that behind every number was a person. This job was bigger than anything she had ever attempted. The responsibility of it was scary. What if she failed? What if she wasn't good enough? But then she remembered kneeling on that wet sidewalk, holding Richard's hand, making the choice to help even when it cost her everything she had been working for. She had trusted her gut then. She had to trust it now. When the car pulled up to her building, Maya thanked the driver and walked up to her apartment. She opened the door and stood in the doorway for a moment, looking at the small space that had been her home, her refuge, and lately her prison. Tomorrow, everything would be different. Tomorrow she would start a new job, a new life, a new chapter. Tomorrow she would have to prove that she deserved this chance. But tonight she was just Maya, the girl who had helped a stranger in the rain. The girl who had chosen kindness over opportunity, not knowing that kindness would open doors she never imagined existed. She walked to her refrigerator and looked at the eviction notice still stuck there with a magnet. Then she slowly took it down and threw it in the trash. Not today, she said quietly to herself. Not ever again. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. But she knew who it was. Thank you for taking a chance on me. Rest well tonight. Tomorrow we start changing things. Richard. Maya smiled and typed back, thank you for taking a chance on me too. See you tomorrow. She set her phone down and looked around her apartment one more time. It was still small, still shabby, still filled with secondhand furniture and dreams that had felt impossible just yesterday. But now those dreams didn't seem so impossible anymore. Now anything felt possible. Maya's first official day at Bennett Holdings started with her standing outside the building at 7 in the morning, staring up at the glass tower and wondering if she had made a terrible mistake. She was wearing a new suit, bought yesterday with the corporate card Richard had given her. It fit perfectly, looked professional, and cost more than she used to make in 2 weeks. But wearing it made her feel like she was playing dress-up, pretending to be someone she wasn't. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mom. First day. So proud of you, baby. Remember, you belong there just as much as anyone else. Maya smiled, took a deep breath, and walked through the doors. The first week was overwhelming. Helen had scheduled meetings for her with department heads from all 42 subsidiary companies. Everyone was polite, but Maya could see the questions in their eyes. Who was this young woman with barely any experience who suddenly had an office on the executive floor? Why was she here? What was she supposed to be doing? Maya wondered the same things. On Friday of that first week, she sat in her beautiful office staring at her computer screen, feeling completely lost. She had pages and pages of notes from her meetings, but she had no idea what to do with them. Everyone had been professional, had answered her questions, but she could tell they didn't really understand her role. How could they? She barely understood it herself. There was a knock on her door. Richard walked in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might need this, he said, handing her one. How's the first week going? Maya considered lying, saying everything was fine. But something about Richard made her want to be honest. I'm drowning, she admitted. Everyone's been nice, but I can tell they think this position is pointless. And maybe they're right. I've sat through dozens of meetings and I still don't know what I'm actually supposed to be doing. Richard sat down across from her. What did you learn this week? That your companies are successful. Everyone hits their targets, profits are strong, efficiency metrics look good on paper. On paper, Richard repeated. But what did you learn that's not on paper? Maya thought about it. I learned that nobody makes eye contact with the janitorial staff. I learned that in one of your manufacturing plants, the break room coffee machine has been broken for 3 months and nobody's fixed it. I learned that your employee handbook is 67 pages long and written in language so technical that most people probably don't read it. I learned that when I asked people if they were happy working here, they all paused before answering. Richard leaned forward. Now you're seeing it. That's your job, Maya. Not the numbers and reports, the pauses, the broken coffee machines, the things that don't show up in quarterly reviews but tell you everything about what it's really like to work here. But what do I do with that information? Maya asked, frustrated. I can't just go around fixing coffee machines. Why not? Richard said simply. Start there. Start with the small things that nobody else is paying attention to. Fix the coffee machine. Rewrite the employee handbook so a normal human can understand it. Make people feel seen. That's the job. After Richard left, Maya sat there thinking. Start small. Start with what she could see and touch and change right now. She picked up her phone and called the facilities manager. Hi, this is Maya Patel. I need to order a new coffee machine for the manufacturing plant on 7th Street. Actually, make that 2 machines, and can you have them installed by Monday? The facilities manager sounded confused. Sure, but that's not usually how we handle equipment requests. There's a form process, approval chains. Consider it. Approved? Maya said, surprising herself with her own confidence. Send the invoice to my department code. And while I have you, let's talk about the other break rooms across all our facilities. I want to make sure they're actually places where people want to take their breaks. She spent the rest of the day making calls, sending emails, starting a list of small changes that could make a big difference. It felt good to do something concrete, something that would actually help people. The next Monday, Maya decided to visit the manufacturing plant herself. She didn't tell anyone she was coming. She just showed up in jeans and a simple shirt, wanting to see the place without everyone putting on a show for an executive visit. The plant was loud and hot. Workers moved between machines with practiced efficiency, their faces focused and tired. Maya walked through, just observing at first. Then she made her way to the break room. The new coffee machines had been installed. 2 of them, shiny and new, with a sign that read, "Enjoy, you deserve it." A woman was pouring herself a cup, and when she saw Maya, she smiled. These just showed up this morning. After 3 months of drinking the sludge from the vending machine, this tastes like heaven. Do you work here? I don't recognize you. Something like that, Maya said. I'm Maya. What's your name? Teresa. I've been working here for 8 years, running the assembly line for the circuit boards. Maya pulled out her notebook. Can I ask you something? What would make your job better? Not the big stuff like salary or benefits, but the everyday things that would make coming to work less difficult? Teresa looked surprised by the question. People didn't usually ask her opinion about anything. Well, the lighting over my station flickers sometimes. Gives me headaches by the end of the shift. And the floor mats we stand on are pretty worn out. They don't cushion much anymore. So my feet and back hurt. Oh, and the bathroom is clear on the other side of the building, so if you need to go, it takes 10 minutes round trip, and everyone gets annoyed because the line has to slow down. Maya wrote it all down. What else? Tell me everything. Teresa did. And then Maya asked the next person who came in. And the next. She spent 4 hours in that break room just listening. People told her about broken lockers and outdated safety equipment and supervisors who treated them like machines instead of people. They told her about not being able to afford childcare and missing their kids' school events because the shift schedules were inflexible. They told her about having good ideas for improving processes, but having no way to share them with anyone who would listen. By the time Maya left that plant, her notebook was full and her heart was heavy. These were good people, working hard, and nobody had bothered to ask them what they needed. Over the next month, Maya visited 12 different facilities. She talked to hundreds of employees. She ate lunch in cafeterias, stood on factory floors, sat in call centers listening to customer service representatives handle difficult calls. And everywhere she went, she asked questions and listened. The changes started small. Better lighting. New floor mats. Portable restrooms added to large facilities. She worked with HR to rewrite the employee handbook into something that actually made sense. She created a simple online form where any employee could submit ideas or concerns directly to her, anonymously if they wanted. But Maya also found bigger problems. At one of the tech companies, she discovered that women were consistently being passed over for promotions, even when they had better qualifications than the men who got promoted instead. At a retail subsidiary, she found that the scheduling system was so rigid that single parents couldn't pick their kids up from school, leading to high turnover and unhappy employees. She compiled everything into a report and scheduled a meeting with Richard. When she walked into his office with a document that was 40 pages long, he raised his eyebrows. "I asked you to find stories," he said. "Looks like you found a novel." Maya wasn't nervous this time. She had spent weeks gathering this information and she knew it mattered. "You wanted to know what we're missing. This is what we're missing. And it's costing us, Richard. Not just in employee morale, but in actual dollars. High turnover costs money. Low productivity costs money. Having a reputation as a company that doesn't care about its people costs money." She walked him through her findings, case by case. The unequal promotion practices, the inflexible scheduling, the safety equipment that hadn't been updated in years, the lack of any real channel for employees to communicate concerns without fear of retaliation. Richard listened to everything, his face growing more serious as she talked. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "I had no idea," he finally said. "I mean, I knew things weren't perfect, but I didn't realize it was this bad. How did this happen? How did we let this happen?" "Because nobody was looking," Maya said gently. "Everyone was focused on the numbers, on the profit margins and quarterly reports. And those things matter, but they're not everything. These people make your companies run. They show up every day, do their jobs, and go home. The least we can do is make sure they're treated fairly and have what they need." Richard nodded slowly. "What do you need from me?" "Authority to make changes. Some of these things I can fix on my own, but others need executive approval. I need you to back me up when I go to other departments and tell them things need to change, because they're not going to like it. Change is uncomfortable, especially when people have been doing things the same way for years." "You have it," Richard said without hesitation. "Whatever you need. Make the changes. Fix the problems. I'll handle any pushback." And there was pushback. When Maya started implementing new policies, she got called into meetings with department heads who were angry about the changes. They complained that she was disrupting established systems. They said she didn't understand how things worked, that she was too inexperienced to be making these kinds of decisions. Maya stood her ground. She showed them the data. She told them the stories of real employees who were suffering under the old systems. And when they still resisted, she brought Richard in, and he made it clear that the changes were happening whether they liked it or not. Slowly, things started to shift. The promotion system was.